I want to show you something. Picture the average person at 65. 40 years of work, 40 years of paychecks, 40 years of effort, sacrifice, showing up. And at the end of it, according to most financial studies, the average retiree has less than $75,000 in total savings, less than 2 years of modest living expenses. After 4 decades, let that sit for a second. This isn't a rare story. This isn't an edge case. This is the most common financial outcome for working people in the modern world. And the terrifying part, most of them never saw it coming. They weren't irresponsible. They weren't reckless. They weren't unintelligent. They were just never told the truth about money. Not the motivational version. Not the Instagram version. The actual truth. Today, that changes. Over the next 4 chapters, we're going to go through 7 hard, uncomfortable, life-changing truths about why most people, despite working their entire lives, end up with almost nothing. These truths will make you uncomfortable. Some will make you angry. A few will feel like someone just turned the lights on in a room you've been stumbling around in for years. Good. That's exactly the point. Because the people who hear these truths and act on them, they don't end up broke at 65. Let's begin. Here's the standard financial story most people live. You graduate, you get a job, you start earning. In your 20s, you're just trying to cover basics: rent, food, transport, maybe a small loan. You tell yourself saving will happen later when you earn more. In your 30s, you're earning more, but your lifestyle adjusted to match. Nicer apartment, better car, a holiday once a year. The savings still haven't started, but they feel closer, just around the corner. In your 40s, life gets expensive in new ways. Kids maybe, bigger home, aging parents needing help, medical bills starting to appear. The savings feel further away now, but you're not panicking. You've still got time. In your 50s, you do the math for the first time. And the math is brutal. There's not enough, not even close. You start cutting back, trying to catch up, but the compounding you missed in your 20s and 30s, that time it's gone. You cannot buy it back at any price. And that's how a hard-working, decent, responsible person arrives at 65 with almost nothing. Not through stupidity, not through laziness, through a series of truths nobody ever told them. 7 of them, specifically, 4 chapters, 7 truths. Chapter 1 covers the 2 truths about income, why the number on your paycheck is far less important than you've been led to believe, and what actually determines whether you get ahead. Chapter 2 covers the 2 truths about time and behavior, the ones that destroy more financial futures than any market crash ever has. Chapter 3 covers the truth about risk, specifically the risk that almost no one talks about, that quietly devastates families every single year. Chapter 4 covers the final 2 truths about freedom and identity, and why until you understand these, the other 6 truths won't stick. No filler, no fluff. Truth, chapter by chapter. Let's go. Chapter 1, The Income Illusions. Truth 1. Your salary is the least important number in your financial life. The number most people obsess over, their income, is not the number that determines their financial outcome. We've been conditioned from childhood to equate income with wealth. Get a good job, get a good salary, get ahead. The problem is, salary and wealth are not the same thing. They are not even close to the same thing. Salary is a flow. Wealth is an accumulation. Water flowing through a pipe doesn't fill the bucket if the bucket has holes. And most people's financial lives are buckets riddled with holes, spending patterns, invisible costs, lifestyle upgrades, debt cycles that drain every dollar flowing in before it has a chance to accumulate. Consider 2 people. Both earn $65,000 a year. Person 1 saves and invests 18% of that income, roughly $975 a month. Person 2 saves 2%, roughly $108 a month, because the salary just doesn't stretch that far. After 25 years at 8% average investment returns, Person 1 has accumulated just over $900,000. Person 2 has accumulated just over $99,000. Same salary, same 25 years, same market. A $800,000 difference created entirely by what they did with the money after it arrived, not by how much arrived. The income was identical. The financial outcome was unrecognizable. This is the first truth most people are never told. The race isn't to earn the most. The race is to keep and grow the most. And those are completely different skills. Chasing a higher salary while ignoring your savings rate is like trying to fill a bathtub without closing the drain. You can run the tap as fast as you like. It will never fill. Mini story, Ravi's promotion trap. Ravi is 34. Software developer. Just got promoted. His salary went from $58,000 to $74,000, a $16,000 raise. He was thrilled. That weekend, he upgraded his apartment. The new place was $400 more per month. He also leased a car, more suited to his new role, he told himself, another $380 a month. New clothes for client meetings, dinners out more often, a gym membership at the nicer facility near the office. Within 90 days of his raise, Ravi had added $1,000 in new monthly expenses. His raise was $1,333 a month. The gap between his raise and his new expenses, $233 a month. After taxes, after adjusting for his new spending, Ravi's promotion, the thing he'd worked toward for 3 years, improved his actual financial position by less than $60 a week. He earned more, he built nothing. Ravi's story is not unusual. Research consistently shows that across income levels, people spend close to 100% of what they earn within the first year of any income increase. A raise without a savings plan is just a more expensive lifestyle. Numbers anchors. Average savings rate globally, under 7%. Savings rate needed to retire comfortably before 60, typically 20–25%. The gap between those two numbers is where most retirements go to die. Action steps. Today, calculate your actual savings rate. Take last month's savings, divide by your take-home income, write the number down. If it's under 15%, that's your starting problem. This week, before your next paycheck arrives, decide what percentage will go directly to savings or investment before you spend $1 on anything else. Automate it. This month, every time you receive any financial increase, raise, bonus, freelance payment, apply the 70-30 rule. 70% for living and enjoyment, 30% directly into building, no exceptions. Micro recap. Your salary is the opening move. It is not the game. The game is the gap between what enters and what stays. Widen that gap. That's where wealth actually lives. But here's what makes the income illusion even more dangerous. It's not just that people spend too much. It's what they spend it on, and the invisible tax that costs them more than almost anything else in their financial lives. Truth 2. Truth 2. Debt is not a tool. For most people, it's a trap dressed up as a lifestyle. Modern consumer debt is the single most effective mechanism ever designed for keeping ordinary people from building wealth. We need to talk about debt clearly because the financial industry has spent decades making debt feel normal, manageable, even smart. Good debt versus bad debt. Leverage your future earnings. 0% financing. No payments for 18 months. The language around debt has been so thoroughly sanitized that most people don't recognize when it's actively destroying them. Here's the unvarnished truth. Consumer debt, credit cards, personal loans, buy now pay later schemes, high-interest vehicle financing is a machine that transfers wealth from people who work for money to institutions that make money work for them. When you carry a credit card balance at 22% interest, you are paying the bank more in interest than most investments will ever earn you in returns. Let that register. The average investment index fund might return 8–10% annually. In a good year, your credit card is charging you 22%. You cannot invest your way to wealth while simultaneously paying 22% interest on debt. The math doesn't work. Not now. Not ever. And yet, the average household carries thousands in revolving credit card debt. Persistent, compounding, quietly ruinous debt that sits in the background of every financial decision. There's another dimension to this that nobody discusses. Debt doesn't just cost money. It costs cognitive space. When you're carrying debt, a portion of your mental bandwidth at all times is occupied by that weight. It affects the decisions you make, the risks you're willing to take, the opportunities you're willing to pursue. The person carrying $18,000 in debt does not think the same way as the person with $18,000 in savings. Same income, completely different psychological landscape. And that psychological difference has real, measurable financial consequences over time. Mini story: the sofa that cost $4,200. Nadia wanted a new sofa, a good one. She found it, $1,400. She didn't have $1,400 in cash available, so she put it on a store credit card. 0% for 12 months. She intended to pay it off within the year. She didn't. Life came up, the balance sat. After 12 months, the deferred interest kicked in at 28%. She made minimum payments for the next 3 years, $40 a month. By the time that sofa was fully paid off, Nadia had paid $2,218 in interest on a $1,400 purchase. The sofa cost her $3,618. She still has it. The springs are going. This is not a story about a foolish person. This is a story about a normal person who didn't fully understand the instrument she was using. Multiply this across a car loan, a personal loan, a store card, a credit card, and you have the financial reality of tens of millions of households, paying wealth-destroying interest rates month after month, year after year, on things they bought years ago and barely remember. Numbers anchors. $5,000 in credit card debt at 22% interest, making minimum payments. Time to pay off, approximately 17 years. Total interest paid, approximately $6,300. Total cost, $11,300 on a $5,000 balance. That's $6,300 in interest, invested instead at 8% over 17 years, would have been worth roughly $19,000. One debt's interest cost, compounded as wealth instead, equals nearly $19,000. Debt is not neutral, it is wealth in reverse. Action steps. Today, list every debt you carry with its interest rate. Order them highest to lowest rate. That ordered list is your attack sequence. This week, commit to paying 0 new consumer debt, no new credit card purchases unless you can pay the full balance at month's end. This is non-negotiable. This month, redirect every dollar beyond your minimum payments to the highest interest debt first. When it's gone, attack the next one. This is the avalanche method, and it saves the most money mathematically. Debt is the opposite of compounding. It compounds against you. Every month you carry high-interest debt is a month your wealth runs backwards. Address it with the same urgency you'd address a leak in the hull of a ship. Now you understand the income illusion. You understand the debt trap. But here's the part that almost no one talks about. Even people who have fixed both of those things, who earn well, who are debt-free, who are doing everything right, can still end up with almost nothing. Because of 2 truths about time and behavior that quietly undo years of careful financial work. Chapter 2. Chapter 2. The Invisible Destroyers. Time and Behavior. Truth 3. The most expensive thing you will ever do is wait. Every year you delay building wealth doesn't cost you 1 year of growth. It costs you a decade's worth of compounding. and you will never recover it. There's a version of this truth that most people have heard. Start early, compound interest, blah blah. They've heard it, they nod, and then they wait. Because early always feels abstract. Because the consequences of waiting feel distant. So let me make it concrete. Let me make it real. Here is what waiting actually costs. Not in theory, but in the actual numbers of your actual life. You are 28, you have $200 a month you could invest. Scenario A, you start today, you invest $200 a month until you're 58, 30 years. At 8% average return, you end up with just over $299,000. Scenario B, you wait until 38, you invest $200 a month until you're 58, 20 years. At the same 8%, you end up with just over $118,000. Same monthly amount, same return, 10 years of waiting. Cost, $181,000. $181,000 gone, not lost to bad investments, not lost to fees, not lost to anything dramatic, lost to a decision made on a random Tuesday to just not start yet. That is the price of delay. And it gets worse the longer you wait. Here's what almost no one explains about compounding. The growth isn't linear. In the early years, your account barely moves. You invest $200 a month, and after year 1, you have maybe $2,600. After year 5, maybe $14,000. It feels slow. It feels almost pointless. But something happens around year 15. The growth starts accelerating. The money you made in year 15 alone starts to exceed what you contributed in any single year, and from that point, the acceleration is exponential. The people who give up in year 5 never see year 15. They quit right before the engine started running. Mini story, 2 cousins, 1 conversation. Preeti and her cousin Anand are the same age, both 30. At a family dinner, they get into a conversation about investing. Preeti has been putting away $250 a month for 2 years. Anand hasn't started, and says he'll start once he's more settled. Preeti does a quick calculation on her phone. If she continues $250 a month until 60, she'll have approximately $375,000 starting from today. If Anand starts at 40 and invests until 60, the same amount, he'll end up with approximately $148,000. The gap between starting now and starting in 10 years, $227,000. That's 2 decades of your salary, Preeti said, and went home and opened an account that night. Not because he had the money perfectly figured out, because he finally understood what waiting actually cost. In hard numbers anchors. The doubling rule. At 8% annual returns, money doubles roughly every 9 years. $10,000 invested at 30 owed $80,000 by age 57. By age 57. $10,000 invested at $40,000 by age 57. $10,000 invested at 50, $21,000 by age 57. $21,000 by age 57. Same money, same market, same destination, age. 3 completely different outcomes determined only by when you started. Action steps. Today, open any legitimate investment account available in your country, a retirement account, an index fund account, a brokerage. Take 15 minutes. Just open it. Don't overthink the platform. This week, make your first contribution. It can be $25. It can be $50. The amount matters far less than the timestamp. Start the clock. This month, set up a recurring monthly contribution, automated, on payday, then increase it by the smallest possible amount every 6 months. Let time do what time does. Waiting feels like doing nothing. It isn't. Waiting is actively choosing a poorer future self. Every day you delay is a cost measured in tens of thousands of dollars paid by the version of you who needs the money most. Start now. Start imperfect. Just start. But starting is only part of the truth, because there are people who start, who open accounts, who make contributions, who do everything right for months or even years. And then one thing happens, one market dip, one scary headline, one bad month, and they undo everything in a single afternoon. This is the fourth truth, and it is brutal. Truth 4. Your brain is hardwired to make you poor, and it will win unless you build systems against it. The human brain was not designed for modern financial decisions, and without deliberate systems to override it, your own psychology will cost you more than any bad investment ever could. Let's talk about what actually happens inside a person's head during a market crash. The market drops 25%. Your portfolio, which you've been carefully building for 3 years, loses a quarter of its value in 3 weeks. Your brain does something very specific in that moment. It triggers a survival response. The same neural pathways that once told your ancestors to run from a predator are now telling you, get out now, stop the pain. This is not weakness. This is biology. The problem is, running from a predator saved your ancestors' lives. Selling investments during a market crash destroys yours financially. The brain cannot tell the difference. And this behavioral gap, the difference between what rational investing requires and what human psychology produces under pressure, is responsible for the single largest source of investment underperformance for ordinary people. Studies on investor behavior consistently find the same result. The average investor earns significantly less than the market itself returns, not because the market failed them, but because they kept getting in and out at the wrong moments. They bought high because optimism felt rational when everyone around them was celebrating. They sold low because fear felt rational when everyone around them was panicking. And they paid for that behavioral pattern over and over again, across decades. There is a second behavioral trap that's even more insidious. It's called present bias. The brain's tendency to value immediate rewards far more than future rewards. $50 today feels worth more than $500 10 years from now, even though the $500 is objectively more valuable. Present bias is why people spend the money that should go to their future selves. It's not laziness, it's not carelessness. It's a cognitive pattern baked into human neurology, one that made perfect sense when humans lived in environments of genuine scarcity and uncertainty, but that actively destroys wealth in a modern financial context. The solution is not to try harder to be rational. You will lose that battle consistently. The solution is to build structures that make the irrational behavior impossible or difficult. Automate, remove access, create friction around the wrong behaviors, create ease around the right ones. Your brain is not your enemy, but it is your biggest financial obstacle. Design around it accordingly. Mini story. The month Tariq lost 2 years. Tariq had been investing steadily for 2 years. Nothing dramatic. $300 a month into a diversified index fund. He was proud of himself, disciplined, consistent. Then a period of economic turbulence hit. News was dark, markets were dropping, his colleagues were talking about it every day at lunch. His portfolio was down about $4,200 from its peak. He sold everything. "I'll get back in when things stabilize," he told himself. 6 months later, the market had recovered and then gone significantly higher. Tariq watched it happen from the sidelines. He got back in eventually, at prices much higher than where he'd sold. The 2 years of growth he'd carefully built, largely wiped out, not by the market, but by his decision to exit it at the worst possible moment. He didn't lose to the market. He lost to his own fear. When Tariq finally understood this, that his brain had been the problem, not the market, he made one change. He deleted the investment app from his phone and set up an automatic monthly contribution with a rule. He was only allowed to check the account twice a year. He removed the opportunity for his brain to intervene. 2 years later, he had rebuilt and surpassed everything he'd lost. Same market, same strategy, different system. Numbers, anchors. Studies on retail investor returns consistently show the same pattern. The average stock market index has historically returned around 8 to 10% annually over long periods. The average individual investor in the same market has historically captured significantly less, often 3 to 5%, due to behavioral mistakes, buying high, selling low, chasing performance, and reacting to short-term noise. The behavioral gap, the difference between market returns and actual investor returns, has cost ordinary people trillions of dollars over time. This is not a niche problem. This is the most common and most expensive financial mistake that exists. Today, identify your personal financial trigger. What makes you most likely to make an impulsive financial decision? Market news, social media, conversations with certain people? Name it. Awareness is the first defense. This week, remove as many financial decision points from your day as possible. Automate every recurring financial behavior. Savings, investments, bills. Every automation is one fewer opportunity for your brain to make the wrong call. This month, establish a personal financial blackout rule. No major financial decisions of any kind within 48 hours of receiving news, economic, personal, or social, that triggers strong emotion. Write it down. Make it a rule you follow without exception. The market didn't make most people poor. Their response to the market did. Build systems that protect your future from your present emotions. Because your brain is brilliant, adaptable, and creative, and completely unsuited to long-term financial patience without structural support. Transition. 2 truths about income. 2 truths about time and behavior. You're building a real picture now. But there's a truth in Chapter 3 that most financial content completely ignores. It's not exciting, it's not motivating, but it is the truth that, when ignored, silently dismantles everything people spend years carefully building. Chapter 3. The truth. Nobody wants to hear. Truth 5. One unprotected emergency will cost you more than a decade of bad decisions combined. The greatest financial risk most people face is not a bad investment. It is the complete absence of protection against predictable, ordinary life events. Most wealth-building content talks about growth. Earn, invest, compound, build. Very little of it talks about the thing that destroys more carefully built financial futures than any market crash, any bad investment, any financial mistake: exposure. An unprotected financial life is a life built on sand. You can construct something beautiful on top of it. Careful savings, growing investments, a widening gap between income and spending, and then one ordinary, unremarkable, completely predictable event arrives: a medical emergency, a job loss, a lawsuit, a serious accident, and everything above the sand disappears into it. Not because you failed as an investor, because you built without a foundation. Let's be specific about what exposure looks like. No emergency fund. The single most common financial vulnerability in existence. 3 to 6 months of expenses, liquid and accessible, that exist specifically to absorb shocks without requiring you to sell investments, take on debt, or borrow from people who love you. Without it, a single job loss, a genuinely ordinary event that happens to millions of people every year, begins a cascade. Month 1, drain savings. Month 2, sell investments, often at a terrible time. Month 3, credit card debt begins. Month 4, the spiral has momentum. No adequate insurance. Health coverage that leaves you exposed to catastrophic costs. Life insurance missing when dependents rely on your income. No disability coverage when your ability to work is your only wealth-generating asset. The mathematics of an uninsured serious illness or injury are devastating. A single hospitalization without coverage can generate bills that exceed a year of income for a middle-class earner. No understanding of what you own and how it's held. When assets have no legal clarity, no named beneficiaries, no basic estate structure, no understanding of liability exposure, a single dispute, a single creditor, a single accident can reach into everything you've built. This isn't complicated to prevent, but it requires deliberately addressing it before the crisis arrives. The goal of protection is not to prevent bad things from happening. Bad things happen, they always will. The goal of protection is to ensure that when bad things happen, they cost you one difficult season, not a decade of rebuilding. Mini story: what almost broke Sunita? Sunita was 41. She'd spent 12 years building a modest but real investment portfolio, just over $52,000. She was proud of it. It represented every bit of financial discipline she'd managed across a career of average income and real responsibilities. Then her husband was diagnosed with a serious illness. Treatment was necessary and extended. Their health coverage had gaps she'd never examined closely. Co-pays, uncovered procedures, medications. At the same time, Sunita reduced her working hours to help with care. Income dropped. Within 8 months, $38,000 of that portfolio was gone. Not lost to a market crash. Withdrawn bit by bit to cover what protection would have covered. Sunita didn't make bad investments. She made one oversight. She never built the financial structure that was supposed to sit underneath everything else. When the floor gave way, everything above it fell too. Today, Sunita has rebuilt, and her first financial priority, before anything else, is the layer of protection she now understands she cannot build without. I thought insurance and emergency funds were for people who didn't know how to manage money, she says. I had it completely backwards. Numbers anchors. Emergency fund target for a household spending $3,500 a month. 3-month minimum, $10,500. Pulse month target, $21,000, $20,000, tied in $1, to teen 1, target to prodi $, teen 1, teen di kondana, teen target to prodi $, teen $1,000, teen tongat, tordana, teen tonga to prodi, tordi $. This money is not invested. It is not chasing returns. It sits in a high-yield savings account, earning modest interest, doing one job, keeping you out of debt, and keeping your investments intact when life becomes expensive. It is the single best financial insurance policy you can buy. Cost: the return on $21,000 that you chose not to invest. What it buys: the ability to survive every ordinary financial shock without dismantling your future. That trade is worth it. Every time. Action steps. Today, open a dedicated protection account, separate from your spending account, separate from your investment account. Label it clearly. This is your emergency fund. This week, start a small automatic weekly transfer into it, even $25. The habit matters more than the amount at the start. The amount grows over time. This month, review every insurance policy you carry: health, life, disability. For each one, answer, if the worst happened right now, what would this cover, and what would I still owe? If the answer is alarming, that's your next financial priority. You cannot build lasting wealth on an unprotected base. Every dollar in your emergency fund is a dollar of armor around everything else you've built. Build the armor first, then build the wealth on top of it. You now have 5 truths. 5 hard, practical, real things that determine whether you build wealth or just earn money. Chapter 4 brings the final 2. And these last truths are different from the others, because they're not about money at all. They're about what money is for, and why most people, even when they're doing everything else right, still end up feeling like they're losing. Chapter 4. The Freedom Truths. Truth 6. Nobody is coming to give you permission to get serious about your money. The financial future you want will not happen by default. It requires a deliberate, conscious decision made once and then reinforced by daily action that most people never actually make. Here's something that sounds obvious and is almost never actually done. Most people have never made a real decision about their financial life. They've had intentions, vague plans, seasonal motivation, January commitments that fade by March. But a real decision, a "this is who I am now, this is what I do" decision, most people have never made one. And without that decision, everything else in this script is just interesting content. The truth about financial change is that it doesn't happen gradually, through small drifts in behavior over time. It happens through a specific moment of decision, a line crossed, a before and after, that restructures everything that follows. Before that moment, money is something that happens to you. After that moment, money is something you actively manage, direct and control. Most people are waiting for that moment to arrive on its own. A crisis, a wake-up call, a devastating financial reality that finally forces the change, and for many people, that is exactly how it arrives. But here's what nobody tells you. You don't have to wait for the crisis. You can choose the moment right now, not when things are worse, not when you have more, not when conditions are perfect. Right now, with whatever you have. The decision doesn't require any specific dollar amount. It doesn't require a finance degree or a salary threshold or a period of preparation. It requires one thing, a choice to take your financial life seriously, starting today, and then the choice to show up for that decision the next day, and the next. There's also something important to understand about the social dimension of this decision. The people around you, your peer group, your family, your colleagues, have an enormous influence on your financial behavior, usually without anyone realizing it. If everyone around you treats money as something to spend the moment it arrives, if that's the cultural default of your environment, then saving and investing feels socially abnormal. And humans are wired to avoid social abnormality. This means your financial decisions are not made in isolation, they are made in an environment, and the environment either supports wealth building or undermines it. Changing your financial outcome sometimes requires changing your environment, or at least being conscious of its influence. The people who build wealth while surrounded by people who don't, they aren't superior, they're just more aware of the current they're swimming against. Mini story, the moment for Olu. Olu is 36. Grew up in a household where money was always tight, always stressful, never discussed except in terms of what they couldn't afford. That became his mental model. Money was scarce. Money caused anxiety. Money was something that happened to you. At 36, he sat down one Sunday afternoon, not because of a crisis, not because of a dramatic event, just because he was tired of feeling like his financial life was something happening to him, rather than something he was building. He wrote one line in a notebook, "Starting today, I manage my money. It does not manage me." Then he spent 3 hours learning the basics of budgeting, emergency funds, and index fund investing. He started that month. Not perfectly, not with a huge amount, but from that Sunday forward, Olu's relationship with money was different. Not because his income changed, not because his circumstances became easier, because he made a real decision, and the decision changed how he saw every financial choice that followed. 3 years later, he has an emergency fund, a growing investment account, and 0 credit card debt. He didn't wait for better conditions. He chose the moment himself. Numbers anchors. The average person spends 147 minutes per day on social media and entertainment. Most financially successful people report spending 30-60 minutes per week, actively managing, reviewing, and adjusting their financial life. Not hours, 30 to 60 minutes a week. Financial mastery does not require a career change or a second degree. It requires a weekly commitment, smaller than most people spend deciding what to watch on a streaming service. The barrier isn't knowledge. The barrier isn't time. The barrier is the decision that precedes both. Action steps. Today, Write one sentence handwritten on actual paper that states your financial intention, not a goal, an identity statement. I am someone who builds wealth deliberately. Put it somewhere you'll see it. This week, schedule 45 minutes on your calendar, a fixed recurring weekly appointment with your financial life. Review spending, check progress, adjust one thing. This month, examine your 3 closest financial influences, the people whose money habits most affect yours. Are they building or consuming? This doesn't mean replace your relationships. It means be conscious of the current. Nobody is coming to rescue your financial future. No employer, no government, no windfall. The decision is yours. The moment is now. Make it deliberately before life makes it for you. 6 truths. We have one left. And this one is the one most financial content never touches because it's uncomfortable. But without it, the other 6 have no anchor. This is the truth about what you're actually building and why it matters more than any number in any account. Truth 7. Truth 7. Wealth without a reason is just stress with a bigger balance. The people who build lasting wealth and remain well-grounded and free while doing it build towards something specific, not a number, a life, and the clarity of that vision is what sustains them through everything the other 6 truths will throw at them. Let's talk honestly about what wealth is for, because here's something nobody discusses. The pursuit of wealth, divorced from a meaningful reason, is one of the most reliable paths to a very specific kind of misery. The person chasing a number, $1 million, $2 million, $5 million with no real understanding of what life looks like on the other side, will reach that number and feel, not much, maybe a brief surge of satisfaction. Then the target shifts upward, because it always does. Because money without purpose is not a destination, it is a treadmill. The research on this is consistent. Beyond the point where money resolves genuine material insecurity, additional wealth produces diminishing returns on well-being unless it is deliberately directed toward things that create genuine meaning. Time with people you love, freedom to choose your work, ability to contribute to causes you believe in, security that allows you to take creative and intellectual risks. These are the things wealth can actually deliver, not the money itself, what the money makes possible. And here's why this is practically important, not just philosophically. People who know specifically why they are building wealth are dramatically more consistent in doing so. When the market drops and fear kicks in, the person building toward a number panics. The person building toward a life holds steady because the life isn't in the account balance. The vision doesn't disappear when the market does. When a tempting impulse purchase appears, the person without a clear purpose weighs it against an abstract number. The person with a clear vision weighs it against something real. Does this get me closer to or further from the life I'm building toward? That clarity is not soft. It is the most practically powerful thing you can have in your financial toolkit. And legacy, the extension of your wealth beyond your own lifetime, adds another dimension. What happens to what you build when you're no longer building it? Who benefits from the financial position you create? What values, habits, and knowledge do you transmit to the people who come after you? Legacy isn't just about inheritance. It isn't just about leaving money. It's about whether the work you did, the sacrifices, the discipline, the patience, echoes forward into lives you may never see. That is a reason to build that no market crash can undermine. Mini story. What Mira was actually building. Mira started investing at 29 with a specific image in her mind. Not a number. An image. Her mother, who had worked physically demanding jobs for 35 years, finally resting, taking a trip she'd talked about since Mira was a child, not worrying. Everything Mira built was pointed at that image. When her friends laughed at her for not living a little in her 30s, she thought about the image. When the market went through a rough period and colleagues were talking about pulling their money out, she thought about the image. When she had the chance to upgrade her lifestyle significantly after a raise, she thought about the image and chose a smaller upgrade instead. At 44, Mira was able to help her mother retire 2 years earlier than she'd planned. The amount of money involved wasn't extraordinary by any objective measure, but to Mira, every dollar of it meant something specific. Not because she was especially disciplined, because she was building towards something real, something she could see. When your reason is clear, the path is clearer, and the journey, even the hard parts, is bearable in a way it never is when you're building toward a number that keeps changing. Numbers anchors. Financial independence is often defined as accumulating approximately 25 times your annual living expenses, a point at which your investment portfolio can theoretically sustain your lifestyle indefinitely. But notice what that formula requires you to know first. What are your actual annual living expenses? What does your life actually need to cost to be a life you want to live? That's a life question, not a financial question. The money follows the life design, not the other way around. Define the life, then work backwards to the number. That sequence changes everything. Action steps. Today, write down 3 things that financial freedom would actually allow you to do, be, or create, that you cannot do, be, or create right now. Get specific. Not travel more, but where, with whom, doing what. This week, assign a purpose label to each of your savings and investment accounts, not just retirement fund, something like the account that makes Tuesdays optional by 55. Specificity creates motivation. This month, have one honest conversation about money with someone you trust, a partner, a sibling, a close friend, not to give advice, to say out loud what you're building toward. Spoken intentions have a way of becoming more real than silent ones. Wealth is not the point. Freedom is the point. Impact is the point. The ability to choose is the point. Money is the vehicle. The destination is a life. Your specific, defined, intentional life. Know what you're driving toward. Build toward that. Let every financial decision be measured against that vision. And you will never confuse wealth with the purpose of wealth again. 7 truths. Not 7 comfortable ones. 7 honest ones. Let's put them together one final time. Truth 1. Your salary is the least important number in your financial life. The gap between what you earn and what you build, that's the number that matters. Truth 2. Consumer debt is not a tool, it's wealth in reverse. At 22% interest, you are compounding backwards. Clear it with the same urgency you'd build wealth. Truth 3. The most expensive thing you will ever do is wait. Every year of delay costs you decades of compounding. Start now, not perfectly, not confidently, not with the right amount. Just start. Truth 4. Your brain is hardwired against long-term financial patience. It is not your enemy, but it will cost you everything if you don't build systems that work around it. Automate. Remove access. Create friction where you need it. Truth 5. One unprotected emergency erases years of careful building. Emergency fund, adequate insurance, legal clarity. Build the fortress before you furnish the house. Truth 6. Nobody is coming to give you permission. The moment doesn't arrive. You choose it. Make the decision deliberately, because life will eventually force the issue, and the terms it offers are far worse than the ones you set for yourself. Truth 7. Wealth without purpose is just a bigger number on the same treadmill. Know what you're building toward. Measure every financial decision against that vision. Let the reason be bigger than the balance. 7 truths. All of them learnable. None of them requiring luck, inheritance, or perfect circumstances. All of them requiring one thing: the decision to act on them. So here's the only thing I want you to do right now. Not 7 things. 1. Pick the truth that landed hardest. The one that made you shift in your seat. The one that described your life so accurately it was almost uncomfortable. And do one thing about it. Today, open the account, make the first transfer, write the sentence, cancel the debt, review the insurance. Just one thing. Because here's the final, most important truth of all. The people who end up broke at 65 didn't lack information. They had access to the same ideas you just heard. What they lacked was the moment of decision and the habit of acting on it. That moment, your moment, is right now. Don't waste it.